So I've got a story for you guys. I almost didn't make it to Buffalo for the draft. I had a direct flight Wednesday night, late, overnight, out of LAX to Buffalo. And I'm getting ready for my flight, just a lot of stuff going on, trying to get ready. And I'm flying JetBlue, right? So I get out of the shower, I kiss my wife goodbye, my daughter, and I get a text message from JetBlue saying, your flight's been canceled. And the follow-up message was, you can rebook through us, but we were not going to be able to get you to Buffalo until Friday night, which is the draft had already been started by that time I had gotten, that was the way I was going to go. So I booked a last-minute flight through Southwest, and I made a crucial mistake that I'm, kind of mad at myself for. I went to social media, just started complaining about JetBlue. I've done it before, and I've gotten things like back for me. This one time I did it with Pizza Hut. I got free pizza for like 3 months. But anyway, did this with JetBlue, and I immediately start getting these DMs from an account that says JetBlue, and I'm all upset. And that's basically what these people are trying to do to you. I wanted my refund. I wanted money because now I had to book a different flight on a different airline to get to Buffalo. And so these guys are calling me, and I'm not thinking right. And this is what they do is they prey on your emotion. And I'm talking to these people, and they're trying to get a refund to me, but they're also asking me to download this third-party app and give them all my personal information. So after about 10 minutes of talking with these guys, I figured out, I'm like, okay, it's a scam. This is a scam. And my dumb ass didn't even look at the account. All I had to do was tap on it to see that it was a scam. But I didn't do it because, again, I'm emotional, irate, mad. So after I figured it out and I hung up on the guy, and obviously I was rude once I figured out it was a scam, Googled it, looked on the websites and saw that, yeah, this is a legit scam that they've been running. So I ended up getting on my flight, blah, 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 whatever. Landed in Chicago. I had to go to Chicago to Baltimore to Buffalo. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to keep DMing these guys. So I DM'd them. And I know you guys have seen the movie Taken, right? So I was like, you know what, man? I got a particular set of skills. And then I'm like, have you guys ever seen the movie Taken? And I didn't expect them to reply. I thought once I, called them out for being the scam, they wouldn't say anything. And I swear to God, not 5 minutes later, they're right back. No, I haven't seen that movie. What app is that stream on? And I just wrote back, it's you app. That's
You
it.
sure got them. You sure got them.
Yeah. I'm a moron.
Welcome to the Flying Octopus Podcast, offering a new perspective on Red Wings hockey, as well as all the important news from around the NHL. And now, here are your hosts, Tony Wolak, Devin Little, and Evan Sabrin.
Hey, it's Carter Bear, and you're listening to the Flying Octopus Podcast.
Welcome to episode 88 of the Flying Octopus Podcast. I'm your host, Evan Sabrin, joined as always by my cohorts, Devin Little and Tony Wolak. A lot of stuff to get to today since we last talked. We got NHL Draft talk. We got free agency talk. More on Dylan Larkin trade drama. So before we get started, I'd like to remind everyone where you can find us. Give us a follow on Twitter at Flying Octopod. You can also find us on YouTube at The Flying Octopod, also on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Guys, let's just dive in. Free agency hit yesterday. So much going on in social media. What's true, what's not. Red Wings brought in a couple players. Tony, I want you to start us off. You made some predictions yesterday that actually came true. And, Tony's never afraid to flex those on social media when he is correct. So, Tony, kick us off. What did you think about day one of free agency for Steve Yzerman and the Red Wings?
Actually, before I dive into that, I'm going to quote our dear friend Devin here that, Devin, I don't remember exactly what you said, but I'll paraphrase that. Day one was great, except for that thing being the Dylan Larkin trade request. Otherwise, it was pretty good. The Red Wings dished out some very respectable contracts. They did not overpay like San Jose did for Jacob Trouba, just to mention one. The players they brought in addressed some of their key offseason objectives. They stuck to their plan. You can't really hate what they did. I mean, sure, it's incomplete right now. And as of this recording, there hasn't been any news on what Patrick Kane is planning to do. But as far as what Todd McClellan and Theo Yzerman said they wanted to accomplish this offseason, notably being harder to play against and scoring more on 5-on-5, they brought in a few players who do exactly that. It's been mentioned a few times already on social media, but Viktor Arvidsson has outstanding 5-on-5 numbers from this past season with Boston. He was my top target, and the Red Wings signed him to a 2-year contract with a $5 million AAV, just as I predicted, as Evan alluded to. And there's a lot to like about that signing. He, for starters, he played for Todd McClellan in Los Angeles and had 2 really great seasons under him. On top of that, like I mentioned, the 5-on-5 scoring, he had the 3rd most 5-on-5 points per 60 last year, trailing only Nathan McKinnon and Nikita Kucherov. So pretty good company there. He's not a top line player by any means, but he's a versatile piece that can play up and down the lineup. Maybe he's the first man in on the first line. He's a complementary piece on the third line. Maybe he's the top player on the third line. He's versatile. He can contribute in more ways than one to this team. And then lastly, I wouldn't say he is like a Selke candidate or anything like that, but he plays a tenacious game off the puck. As our good friend Shane Malloy likes to say, he has a good B game. And when he doesn't have the puck on a stick, he hounds the opposition trying to get it back. He's a high effort guy that this team needs, that they, McClellan and Yzerman have been preaching this is our identity, and they got someone who fits it to a T. So suffice to say, I'm very happy with the signing. We'll see what happens later on with the other pieces here. But as far as, free agent signings on day one, I couldn't have asked for anything better than the Red Wings signing Viktor Arvidsson. How about you, Devin?
Yeah, I would agree. I think that as far as wanting to address your 5-on-5 scoring and not handcuff yourself to anything egregious, obviously the free agent pool is pretty shallow this year. Yeah, I don't think you could have done any better than what they did. Also signed Daniil Tarasov to a one-year deal with a $2 million cap hit to effectively, you kind of pencil him into the backup slot behind Jad Gibson. You kind of hope and expect that Michael Postava and Trey Augustine will compete for the backup spot as well. But for right now, I think you pencil Tarasov in there, and he's somebody that he's 27 years old. You feel good about him as the backup if that's what he is, but also the contract isn't so prohibitive that there's no way that Postava or Augustine will see the ice this year if they earn it, I should say. That in of itself was a really solid contract too. And then obviously they also made a trade yesterday with Vegas even, but it wasn't involving a player that we're all kind of expecting that might have been traded to Vegas. Tony, I'm going to pivot back to you. What do you think of the deal Detroit made to acquire Keegan Kolesar from the Vegas Golden Knights?
First thing it made me think of was the 3rd round pick that Detroit traded for him. Vegas was on that pick's trade list. So that is exactly where that pick wanted to go. So happy for the pick. It's the 3rd round pick in 2029, as well as the 7th round pick in 2027, which the Red Wings had acquired from Vegas, the weekend before. So as far as Keegan Kolesar goes, he's your prototypical 4th line checking forward. And I know that's probably not what fans want to see with, Larkin potentially leaving, Kane potentially leaving. Like, why are we bringing in this guy for the, bottom 6 who is more of a checking forward? The reason why is because he plays a violent game and no one else on the team does. I mean, you can make the case for Moritz Seider, but as far as forwards go, no one else plays the same style. Kolesar has been part of a few great Vegas teams making deep playoff runs and has had a vital role as their, as a 4th line checking forward. He played with Colton Sissons and Cole Smith en route to the final this past season. The offensive numbers aren't astounding by any means, but defensively, they shut it down. If you look at high danger chances against, scoring chances, expected goals against, that line, and Kolesar in particular, did a great job of shutting down opponents. And what he brings to the Red Wings is he brings an identity to the bottom six. Now, he plays a heavy game. If you look up on social media or YouTube, some of his hits, you're like, whoa, have not seen that in a while. Okay, all right, we're getting someone here. But he's also like, he's not just a one-dimensional player either. Like I said, he plays well defensively. He hounds opposition. He, is you can give him the puck and not be concerned. He's a player that you want in the bottom six to have an identity and be harder to play against. And those were some of the, goals that this team had heading into the offseason. Their bottom six really had no identity. Their third line was just like a watered down scoring line, and their fourth line was an even more watered down scoring line. Now with Kolesar, you could potentially deploy him alongside say Michael Rasmussen and Mason Appleton as like a heavy checking fourth line to shut down opponents. You can potentially have him alongside Marco Kasper and Emmett Finney or Michael Brandsegg-Nygaard. Again, heavy, physical, fast. It gives you someone to match up against if you want to go that route. And again, gives the team an identity and just a physical element that's been sorely, sorely lacking. I was actually out getting ice cream when when that news dropped. So it was also in a place with bad service. So I just got a DM saying, Keegan Kolesar next. And I'm like, huh, okay, go back to eating my ice cream. Then like, as I get back into service, all the messages and pings just start coming through. And I was like, oh, okay, so that did happen. That wasn't just an idea. Cool. All right. Reasonable trade, reasonable contract, no objections, gives the team an identity. Devin, what did you think? Were you getting ice cream too, or were you just hanging out?
He was at the movies, dude.
Dude,
He
it
was at
is
the
like,
movies.
it's been like 100 degrees the past 3 days here, and it's not going to stop.
Yeah.
It's insane. And God forbid we get ice cream to cool down.
I am envious that you were eating ice cream when this news came, because no, I was finding the coldest place I could be in. My two things about Kolesar, I guess I have three things. Just real quick, I agree with pretty much everything you said there, Tony. Kolesar is going to he's going to bring an identity to the bottom six that has been sorely needed. Management and the coaching staff talked about wanting to be tougher to play against. I think that's what Kolesar embodies, is the ability to make the team tougher to play against. You couple that with a snarly player like Carter Mazur, who you expect to play full time. He also got a 2-year deal on July 1st as well to stay with Detroit. And then other players too that like to play a heavy game. That this is kind of the first significant step towards building a new identity for Detroit's bottom six. The other two things I want to highlight: the quote that the Red Wings social media team posted. Kolesar met with the media, obviously after the trade. And the quote that the Red Wings published was, "The toughness of being hard to play against, being a veteran presence on the front end, bringing guys into the fight. I think that's something I can provide." And that
Hold on.
note,
Bringing guys into the fight? This is a new concept to me.
exactly, that quote, or that part of the quote exactly, is what has been missing. And that is what, it's got to be music to people's ears. Having seen, the Ottawas and whatnot bully the Red Wings over the last few years. And then my last little thing I want to throw out too is, I think it's very fitting that he will, at least with Vegas, he wore number 55, because I know longtime Red Wings fans will remember somebody else who wore 55 that was known for laying big hits on guys.
Absolutely. Larry Murphy was quite the hitter. No. And just to round out the signings, so we mentioned Viktor Arvidsson, you mentioned Mazur, Tarasov. Kolesar was a trade. Detroit also signed right wing Cameron Butler to a 1-year deal, Wilmer Skoog to a 1-year deal, and Jacob Bryson to a 1-year deal as well. So as far as these players go, these are more depth players. Bryson is, I can see him pushing William Wallinder, Axel Sandin Pellikka, Jacob Bernard Docker for one of the last defensive spots. More than likely, he'll be spending time in Grand Rapids, unless he plays outstanding in training camp and others don't. Wilmer Scoot, kind of the same deal, pushing Mazur, pushing Appleton, pushing Rasmussen, put up some good numbers in the AHL last year with Florida's minor league team, but again, more organizational depth. And Cameron Butler, it split time between the ECHL and AHL last year, so he is more likely to be Grand Rapids bound. But one thing I do want to highlight before we pivot to the draft is when you look at the Arvidsson and Kolesar additions in particular, these moves they're not moves that a team would make if they are attempting to retool or take a step back. I know they're not the flashiest names, but the types of acquisitions this is for a team that wants to get better. They want to establish an identity in the bottom six. They want to be harder to play against. They want to score more. This isn't, let's sign this guy and then hope he has a great year. We can trade him at the deadline. No. These are players who the intent of them being there is to improve the Red Wings to get them into the playoffs. Now, obviously, like we let off with, there's a huge caveat about what happens with Dylan Larkin. Who knows how long they'll drag out? There's a chance nothing happens. Yzerman just doesn't get an offer that he wants and says, hey man, got a contract, see you in training camp. We'll try to figure something out. And then he goes to training camp. So with that being said, I didn't expect there to be like any sort of step back in terms of how this team is approaching the offseason. I know many have made the case that they're better off, moving Larkin at whatever cost, moving on from John Gibson, trading Justin Falk, retooling as quickly as possible to build around Lucas Raymond and Simon Edmondson. It's just not feasible, though. And I don't think management or ownership have any appetite to do that. It's been long enough since this team was playoff bound. And it's a business after all. It's a revenue-driven sport from game attendance, from merchandise, from playoff, from playoff tickets. You can't be doing this for 10 years and say, let's try it again. You can't be perpetually rebuilding it. Not when the goal for others in the organization, maybe not Yzerman, maybe not, Todd McClellan, but others in the organization is revenue. You just can't do it. And I know Chris Ilitch wants to see the Red Wings succeed. He wants to see the Tigers succeed. He knows what kind of revenue the, playoffs in both sports drive for the organization. Not to say that's the only thing he's focused on, but this entire Red Wings organization, they want a winner. They don't want to take a step back. And the moves that they, pulled off on July 1st indicate that's still the case.
Yeah, I don't think that it is lost on the Red Wings organization that the Detroit Pistons hosted home playoff games at Little Caesars Arena before they did. And if you've ever been to Little Caesars Arena, I'm telling you that's a Red Wings arena that the Pistons kind of just also reside in. And that is not the Pistons arena. So it's a little embarrassing. So I fully agree that that's what the organization's prerogative is right now. And in fact, I'm right there with you. My first impressions of, as I'm, calling it a night last night, July 1st, and gathering my thoughts. My thoughts were they addressed the needs that we all thought they needed to address in the immediate aftermath of Game 82. Like, before we ever heard that Larkin wanted out, before any of that happened, they addressed the needs that we all kind of expected them to. Now, and that's kind of where we're coming from with the comment of, they had a good July 1st. It's just this other thing that kind of hovers over it and makes everything else feel very uncertain. I can't help but wonder if Patrick Kane is already signed to another 1-year deal, if the Larkin thing isn't a thing right now. It's going to be very interesting to see how this unfolds. I think that to some extent, the Red Wings could be content with what they've done so far. The fact that Yzerman hasn't spoken to the media yet very much tells me that there's other things he's trying to get done. I'm sure Patrick Kane's one of them. I wouldn't be surprised if there's one or two other things. Obviously, the Larkin deal. But if you would have told me, right after game 82 that the Red Wings are going to sign Viktor Arvidsson. I almost said Olofsson. They they signed Viktor Arvidsson and they trade for Keegan Kolesar and they signed Daniil Tarasov. The longest contract between all three of them is 2 years, and it's Arvidsson's. And the highest cap hit is $5 million, and that's it. I sign me up. That sounds like a really good offseason. It's going to be really interesting to see how they take what they've done, these good things that they've done, and use them to kind of build into whatever ends up coming of the Larkin situation. The further we get into this, and I know we're recording this on July 2nd. There's a long summer ahead of us, but the further we get from the 2026 draft, the more I think Larkin's going to be playing at least one more game for the Red Wings. I don't think he's played his last game, but yeah, still a long summer ahead of us.
They're maintaining the status quo until the status quo isn't the status quo anymore. Larkin is still on the team until he's not. Now, you're right. I do expect them to make at least one other move independent of Dylan Larkin, whether that's Patrick Kane or if he moves on to go somewhere else. Maybe it's bringing back Anthony Mantha. Maybe it's seeing if Claude Giroux can step in and kind of fill a similar role as Kane. Maybe it's Michael Bunting. Who knows?
You love Michael Bunting.
I do think they add one more forward. And then obviously if Larkin has moved at some point and there's a hole there, you can, look for other opportunities beyond that. But that's how I see things playing out over the next few days before everyone heads off to their cottage.
All right, I want to talk about another Viktor who's now part of the Red Wings organization, and I did have the chance, as I talked about earlier, to be at the draft, credentialed this year. Great time in Buffalo. I hit every Wings bar. It used to be when you're younger, you go to the bar to drink. Now we went to every bar to eat chicken wings.
Did you have food poisoning, or
no,
are you good?
No,
okay,
no.
good,
I forgot about that part. No, Anchor Bar treated me well. I took some pictures of Duff's. We went there. Fantastic. Travis from Hockey Town West podcast actually joined me for my trip in Buffalo. So we had a great time, just pigged out. It was fantastic. City of Buffalo, amazing. You can really feel the passion for that team there. And it's kind of hard, like for the Sabres, you kind of feel like they're almost like the Detroit Lions. It's so bad for so long that you kind of still root for the Sabres. But I think they did an excellent job of the draft. And I'll be honest, I did not see the JP Hurlbert, the trade, when the Red Wings traded Sebastian Cossa trading into the first round for JP Hurlbert. I did not see that until the last minute. I was in the interview room downstairs in the facilities there at the KeyBank Center. They're not showing the draft live. They just have a big board up. And I saw 23 and I saw the Red Wings logo, and then I saw JP Hurlbert. I'm like, what the? I didn't even catch it. Was really excited about that. Probably took me about 5 to 10 minutes to figure out how it all went down, but was pretty happy with that move. Want to get your guys' thoughts on that before I say one last thing. The highlight of my weekend and being there and hanging out with the guys, seeing Viktor Plante get drafted, just the emotion from the whole Plante family. And I know I posted a couple of pictures. I've never seen anyone so happy. The smile and look on Max's face to see that his brother was drafted to the same organization as he was, it was heartwarming. It really was. And to see him go up there, and I got to talk to him a little bit in the interview room, and this kid's ecstatic. He just was ecstatic. I mean, just the biggest grin from ear to ear. It was fantastic. The only other thing that I wanted to mention here real quick before Devin, I throw it to you to get into some of these picks. JP Hurlbert, it was a really awkward moment when they asked him who was your favorite Red Wing, and I think he was kind of like, yeah, I mean, you just get drafted. I mean, they literally they drag you down into this interview room. You're surrounded by all of us, Red Wings media. We're all up in your face, and I don't think it kind of registered to him at the moment. What he had said. So when they asked him, who's your favorite Red Wing, and he goes Dylan Larkin, and I looked at the Red Wings social media team, and and then after he left, everyone was kind of looking around like, oh, he just said Dylan Larkin. Oh, that's kind of weird. But yeah, that was really cool. I like the Red Wings draft haul. I thought it was trading into getting the JP Hurlbert was interesting. I think he's a dynamic player, and I think he can make this team the next couple of years. Devin, you're our draft guru. Let's go over the picks and how you felt with the Red Wings added at the 2026 NHL draft.
Well, JP Hurlbert was obviously an unexpected pick. We, Tony and I, when we were doing our little draft preview show last week, we talked about what if the Red Wings got a top 10 pick. We did not get down the board and talk about what if they had a pick between 20 and 30, and maybe we would have talked about Hurlbert there, but who knows? He's a very exciting player, and I think if you've perused social media or just kind of read scouting reports on the kid, you've come to the conclusion that he kind of represents the type of player that the Red Wings don't have a ton of, if any, in their prospect pool. He's a high offensive upside player. Obviously, it's big bonus points for the kid that he grew up a Red Wings fan that plays really big around here. It's kind of funny. The Red Wings traded Amadeus Lombardi to the New Jersey Devils for a 4th round pick. And a player that really comes to mind for Hurlbert is Lombardi, but like a high-end version of him. I see a player that has immense offensive skill. He has played down the middle, and I think it's a possibility he plays down the middle. But right now, I'm leaning definitely he's a winger, and that was Lombardi's thing too. He could play center, but he seemed like he fit more as a winger. Not only does he have a high offensive ceiling, but he likes to shoot the puck. Like he does not hesitate when he is in shooting position. And I already, once the pick was made and I start to think 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road, we've already gotten to a place with Lucas Raymond where we're like, man, he's so good, but if he shot the puck just a little bit more, he'd be excellent. And I think that potentially having a player like Hurlbert on his opposite wings to not only, pass the puck to, but have as like a distraction, so to speak, so that he can use it, so that Raymond can use his shot. I think that's an exciting thing to think about. Now that's, at least a couple years away, but I like the pick a lot. I think that he's someone that, as much as he's a different type of prospect, he also still checks a lot of Red Wings boxes. He's a penalty killer in junior. He still has a solid commitment to playing at both ends of the ice. Just overall, I think this is a really talented player, and I think he will play NHL games. I'm excited to watch him develop right in the Red Wings' backyard at the University of Michigan this season. Having said that, though, obviously the Red Wings had to make a maneuver to acquire this pick, and it was a pretty significant one. A lot of chatter was going around heading into the draft about the Red Wings goaltending situation and what they might do. Sebastian Cossa was next year. He requires waivers if he's going to go down to the AHL. And would he be Gibson's backup? Would he not? Well, nope, he's not going to be Gibson's backup. He was the piece traded in that deal to acquire pick 23. Tony, I want to pivot over to you on this one. What did you think of the trade that ultimately landed the 23rd pick for the Red Wings? And are you maybe a little disappointed to see kind of the culmination of the Sebastian Cossa story in Detroit?
I guess you can say I'm a little disappointed, just because I feel like we had put so much like mental stock into this guy for so long. He was drafted in 2021, so it's been quite a while since he joined the Red Wings organization. So when we finally thought the Red Wings had like a goalie of the future, then that was great. Obviously, Trey Augustine came along later. Postava came along later. But Cossa was the guy, and probably the best prospect the Red Wings had since Jimmy Howard, if not Chris Hoskett. So
I was hoping you wouldn't say Thomas McCollum, but thank God.
No shade at Tom McCollum. He was my draft year. I just wish the Red Wings picked me over him in the first round. That's their goalie. Yeah, no. The move, it didn't surprise me, just because there had been rumors about Utah poking around on Cossa at the draft the prior year. Devin, you and I had been kind of hinting towards this in our offseason projections and in moves that we could see happening, that Utah was the team if Cossa was going to go somewhere, and surely enough, it happened. We thought it might be part of a Larkin trade, or for a player like Barrett Hayton or what have you, but still, first round pick when the Red Wings didn't have one. It's a good deal. this is the type of move you can make when you have Trey Augustine and Mike Postala in Grand Rapids. It's supply and demand, folks. The Red Wings had a high supply of quality goalie prospects, and a team like Utah was looking for one. So Detroit got help where they needed help in exchange for something where they had a surplus. So that was the right move to make. And getting a player like GT Hurlbert, it's like you said, it's a player that they don't have a lot of. And again, it's hold on, stop down. And getting a player like they did in JT Hurlbert, it's like you're getting a player you don't have a lot of, and it helps again with their key offseason objectives. In their prospect pool, they needed scoring help. They got scoring help. I'm good with it. Like, I wish Cossa was still like with the Red Wings, but with how things ended up, can't be mad.
I would agree. Sad to see Cossa go, but I think that I'm looking at this half full, I guess. I don't look at this as a failure on Cossa's part. I look at it more as a success on Detroit's part in terms of accumulating legitimate goaltending prospects. Because, like you said, Tony, they can't make this move if Trey Augustine and Postava aren't legitimate goaltending prospects. Now, going over the rest of their draft class here real quick, and they did have a full class. They entered the draft without all of their picks, and they made a pick in every single round. So good on them being able to maneuver and get that done. Evan, you mentioned Viktor Plante. I see him, first of all, of course, the Red Wings picked him up. It would have been a crime if anyone else did. Second, so first and foremost, the players that come to mind when I think about who he could be one day are Zach Hyman and Brian Rust. I think of kind of hardworking, grindy type of player that complements the high skill guys, and can, put the puck in the net too, thanks to those skill guys. Ironically enough, I think that he's the type of player that would complement his brother Max very well. I think you could put those two on a line. You put a nice, you probably put like a scorer or something in between them, and I think they could get they can make some magic together. Also, Plante, he checks the Red Wings boxes. He competes hard. Is a solid two-way player. Has played on both the power play and penalty kill, so theoretically he has paths forward in terms of not just being a 5-on-5 player. And it's a good story. Of course it is. And like you said, Evan, it was really cool to see just how big of a smile he had from the moment they called his name to the moment he's answering questions from the media. Kid was elated. Michael Orsulak, the goalie they drafted, because of course they drafted another goalie. Very, very raw talent, but it fits into their pool of prospects. He is a very aggressive goaltender. He likes to make himself look big. He's already pretty big. He's 6'4", 225. He's a very confident, at least he plays with a lot of confidence. I think that kind of goes hand in hand with the aggressiveness. He's a very, what his, maybe the biggest thing he needs to work on over the next few years is he can sometimes weight himself into a bad spot. He waits for the shooter to make the first move, and he waits so long that, a quick move gets him out of place, and then, they score. So, but just in terms of his raw toolkit, what he physically brings to the table, he's a big goalie that plays the position with a lot of confidence. And I think that goalie specifically is a position that confidence goes a long way with. So, looking forward to monitoring him amongst all the other goalies over the next few years. Adam Levac, grit and nastiness is what I wrote down and bolded. He is somebody, I talk about Eddie Genborg. I like to call him the Punisher because of how he plays. I think Levac has a little bit of that too. He's not afraid to engage in the physical part of the game. He works hard, checks those boxes. He's a strong centerman. He does have a little bit of maybe a little bit of too much of an edge. He did serve an 8-game suspension back in January for a slew foot. You never like to see that. Hard to defend as a fan. But I'm choosing to again look on the positive side here, positive spin on it. It's another player type that the Red Wings don't really have a lot of. They acquired Keegan Kolesar to bring nastiness to the lineup, and I think that Levac is a player that one day could bring some nastiness too. A few more to go here. Beckham Edwards might be my, aside from Hurlbert, might be my favorite pick of their draft class. Underrated skill, stagnated offensive production this season, but I think that has somewhat to do with the talent around him. I think that if he hits, he could be a Larkin light or maybe like a Philip Deneau, somewhere in that realm. He's a 5th round pick, so long shot to be anything like that.
He,
But
he did he did have first round consideration going into his draft year, and I think that's
yes,
something that may have flown under the radar because he had a good draft -1 season. But you said like you said he stagnated, but he's also on a bad team. So you do wonder how he'll perform at Notre Dame this upcoming season. And who knows, maybe he could kind of recover some of that magic from the past. Maybe that trajectory for his development starts, pointing up again. It's not all development's linear. We all know that. But, you know, with a new with a new league, with new teammates, with a better team, who knows? I mean, this guy could even if he's not like a Philip to know, maybe it's like another late round Emma Finney sort of player that pans out and it's like, oh, cool. Wasn't expecting that, but great.
we take those, right? We take those. He also played in the Little Caesars program, and I know that had to have put him on the Red Wings radar, of course. Luca Arco, Finnish big dude, 6'3", already has pro size, plays a big game, can absorb contact to make a play. With that kind of size, you hope he does. I think that his biggest thing is that he produces through being a smart player, using his size to his advantage, putting himself in the right spot. He definitely attacks the heart. You have to earn it areas of the ice. But he's not going to be somebody that is going to deke you out of your skates. He's not going to be somebody that necessarily creates for himself. He's somebody that if he's going to produce as he continues to develop, it's going to be just through sheer hockey IQ. I could see him if he hits and he really hits a ceiling, he could be a Thomas Holmstrom type of guy, and that would be a welcome addition, of course, to the Red Wings lineup. But as great as Thomas Holmstrom was, he was very, very much on his lines to fill a role. Park yourself in front of the goalie and hope the puck hits you, basically. And that's why I think Arco could be one day. And then last to close it out, they got a defenseman, Miles Brosnan, drafted out of high school. Those kids are, in my opinion, maybe the hardest to project because they are literally playing against 17-year-old kids. Most of them that won't play hockey once they graduate high school. So quality of competition isn't necessarily much to go off of, but he is a very mobile, very smart defenseman. Not just smart on the ice, but off the ice too. He is committed to play for Harvard. I hear that's a hard place to get into. He makes a good first pass. And he is also very patient with the puck. He knows that you can hold on to the puck an extra second or two and that lanes will open up. And I think that is a skill that if he continues to display and really build on as he, progresses through college and then potentially the professional leagues, that could carry him forward. He's not a super big guy, but he's also not a super small guy. His mobility and ability to read the play on the ice is what makes him a legitimate process and a decent bet in the 7th.
A lot of these picks that the Red Wings selected this year, they're not your typical Red Wings pick. And I think that's refreshing to see because I feel like the draft strategy shifted a little bit this year. And that might have been out of necessity with not having a first round pick, like in the couple months from the trade deadline to the draft. The Red Wings may have been looking for like, all right, where can we find more upside? Where can we find, talented players who aren't, first round material, like who are players that need some refinement but have some elite skills otherwise. And I think it showed. And like they ended up getting JP Hurlbert too, which was obviously great. But this is something I was calling for before the draft is just like it needs to be adjusted with where this team is right now. You have plenty of pro style players already in the organization. You have Nick Danielson, Marco Casper, Michael Brandt Sagnegaard, you got Carter Mazer. These players already fit that middle six, a high IQ, high compete sort of role that has been prioritized. And it's like, now you got to find skill to put around them. And I think they did that. They brought in players with attributes that mesh nicely with what they already have instead of adding more of the same. So I'm a big fan of the draft class for that reason. And we'll see how it pans out in the long term. But in the meantime, it's encouraging that the organization adapted on the fly and just didn't stick with the same old, same old. I think that shows that, despite what people say, no one's asleep at the wheel. They are going through day by day and adjusting and looking for ways to get ahead.
Quick draft grades from each of you. Devin, go first.
All things
Overall.
considered, it's probably A-, and I might even be able to be talked up to an A. I thought it was a really solid draft class, especially that they were able to make a pick in every round.
Tony?
Based on the picks that they had, like, you can give San Jose an A+, but they also had the number 2 pick, the number 9 pick. They knocked it out of the park. Detroit didn't have those picks. So the value that they got from the picks that they had, yeah, B+ for sure. I would, the only one I would potentially disagree with, great story and all, I probably would have rather had William Hawkinson instead of Viktor Plante in the second round. Another need for the Red Wings, but still, it's not the end of the world. It's not like that was a huge drop off with how it panned out. And then Michael Orsolak, I do think he has, very good potential. I had him on my draft board as well. Again, good value for the picks they had.
Well, I think Devin, you got to make your way down to Ann Arbor because that Michigan team is a wagon, a massive, massive wagon. Michael Hage, Will Horkoff, Jaden Perron, Malcolm Spence, Valentini, Hurlbert, frickin' Cameron Reed, Henry Muse, Landon DuPont, and Ivankovic in goal. Like, man, that's going to be a good team to watch. I can't wait for these Michigan State battles this year. It's going to be great. All right, guys, we got to wrap here. That's going to do it for episode 88. Thanks for joining me today, guys. Quick reminder, one last time, where you can find us. Get us on Twitter at Flying Octopod, YouTube at The Flying Octopod. We'd love to hear from you. Like and subscribe, iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Hit us up. And one last thing of note here, and this was something that I thought was really special. The Blues have added Shane Malloy as Director of Strategic Planning. So I don't know if he's going to be able to come on the podcast anymore and talk Red Wings with us, guys. It's going to be all Blues now for him.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, though, well-deserved shout out. Thank you so much, Shane, for everything you've done on our show and the advice you've given me. I'm really looking forward to seeing what you do in St. Louis because the Blues got a good one. So with that, we're going to wrap this episode. We'll be back next week to talk more Red Wings. Hopefully we got a little more to talk about next week as regards to the Dylan Larkin situation because I think this might be playing out a little longer than we were hoping for. So thanks for watching episode 88, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Flying Octopus Podcast. Follow us on YouTube at the Flying Octopus channel and Twitter at Flying Octopod.